Hello and welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, a special thank you to every single one of you who has become a subscriber on Substack, Patreon, here on YouTube, or who has otherwise supported my work. I want you to know that I appreciate every single one of you. Following the UN General Assembly meetings this week, Turkish President Erdogan visited the White House. For Erdogan, this meeting was his first visit to the White House in 6 years. And for Trump, it was an opportunity, a really great one, to press, quote, his friend into making strategic choices that could reshape regional geopolitics. Trump doubled down on his attempts to cut the world off of energy resources from Russia. He urged Erdogan to stop buying Russian oil, the same thing he did with China and India without success. Trump and Erdogan had a truly wide-ranging agenda. Topics included tariffs, nuclear cooperation, civilian nuclear cooperation, Turkey's long-standing desire to rejoin the F-35 fighter jet program, Patriot air defense purchases, and the complex realities of Middle Eastern conflicts. What's interesting is that to mock Turkey's F-35 plans, its ambitions to purchase F-35, Donald Trump wore an F-35 pin. Take a look.
We do a lot of trade with Turkey, and we're going to continue. We're going to do some additional trade. They want to buy F-16s, F-35s, and some other things, and we're going to talk to them about that. And we're just going to have, I think, a very interesting couple of hours. We're going to get a lot done.
Mr. President, when are you planning to lift CAATSA sanctions against Turkey?
Against sanctions against Turkey?
CAATSA.
Could be very soon. If we have a good meeting, almost immediately.
Let's unpack what's going on, because this meeting may signal a new phase in U.S. Turkey's relationship with ripple effects across the world. Energy was at the very heart of Trump's pressure campaign, and so we will start with energy. Turkey remains deeply reliant on Russian gas and oil, with nearly half of its gas imports in 2024 coming from Russia. Ankara uses those resources to power its manufacturing sector and to ease the pressure of high inflation at home. It's been dealing with very high inflation for years. Much of that gas arrives through the TurkStream pipeline, which some in Washington view as Russia's backdoor into European energy markets amid Western sanctions. Trump's message to Erdogan was very clear: just cut the ties. Well, Erdogan, of course, is very notorious for leveraging the West versus the East in his foreign policy, so likely this might become a possible bargaining chip moving forward. But Trump would be very naive to think that Erdogan would cut Turkey off of Russian energy exports altogether. The United States has already pushed Europe to impose tariffs and reduce purchases of Russian energy to Europe's detriment, of course, as we know very well. And now Trump wants Turkey to follow suit. But unlike the EU, Turkey is not exactly a vassal state, and Erdogan's foreign policy is very complex.
This is a tough man. This is a guy who's highly opinionated. Usually I don't like opinionated people, but I always like this one. But he's a tough one, and he does an amazing job in his country. And we've had tremendous relationships, both having to do with war and having to do with trade. And I guess today we're talking about both. I'd like to have him stop buying any oil from Russia.
But for Turkey, this is an economic gamble too. And cutting Russian gas overnight simply isn't realistic. It's not going to happen. Most of these energy deals are long-term pipeline contracts anyway. They're not easy to cancel shipments. However, Turkey did make a concession. Turkey made some moves in recent weeks. It just signed a 20-year supply agreement for U.S. liquefied natural gas. As you know very well, Trump's administration is pushing very hard to get more U.S. LNG into Turkish ports as well as on the international market. And based on Trump's rhetoric, it appears that if Erdogan does want closer ties with Washington, then energy alignment may be non-negotiable. Then there was a discussion over Syria, and I will briefly cover this as I know there are many channels on YouTube that go into great detail on this topic. This is a region where U.S. and Turkish interests have clashed. Ankara has long objected to U.S. support for the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, which Turkey considers a terrorist extension of the PKK. Trump is now effectively pressuring the SDF to surrender autonomy and to integrate into Syria's army, effectively centralizing control in Syria. Turkey appears to be on board with that. It does support the move, so there is a rare convergence of interests here in terms of security cooperation or security interests. Next up, let's talk about F-35s, sanctions, and U.S. politics in greater detail. One of Erdogan's key goals in the meeting was getting Turkey back into the F-35 fighter jet program. And I will remind you that Turkey was actually kicked out of this program back in 2019 after purchasing the Russian S-400 missile defense system. And since then, it has been banned by U.S. Congress from receiving F-35s unless it no longer possesses the S-400. Erdogan arrived in Washington with a deal in hand. He was ready to make a deal. He had a promise to lower tariffs on U.S. goods, and he also had a well-designed plan to buy hundreds of Boeing and Lockheed Martin aircrafts. So, in other words, Erdogan is here to spend some cash to please Trump, and Trump recognizes that. But Congress isn't buying it. That's the dilemma here. Even if Trump supports restoring the F-35 deal with Turkey, Congress has the final word. And U.S. lawmakers remain deeply skeptical, and not just because of the S-400 defense system, but also because of Turkey's tensions with Greece. Greece is a close ally of the United States and Israel, and Greece has already ordered 20 F-35s with an option to order 20 more. And that is the exact number of F-35s that Erdogan wants. According to some analysts, Erdogan may see F-35s as a strategic necessity, especially now that Greece is arming up and doing so very quickly. But what's interesting is that Israel is very busy lobbying against Erdogan getting F-35s, and I'm sure that it will have a final impact on that decision moving forward, given how things work in Washington. Still, Trump may be motivated by his desire to make a deal. Trump wants to make a deal. He wants to do business. He's very transactional, and reports indicate that Lockheed Martin actually needs large orders of F-35s to sustain production while the United States transitions to the next generation 47 fighter. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE are now seen as the three biggest potential buyers outside NATO. Erdogan, who is very skilled at sitting on two or even more chairs, depending on how you look at it, appears to be willing to offer just enough cooperation to Trump on things like energy, buying American weapons, of course the ones that he's allowed to purchase anyway, and on Syria. At the same time, Erdogan is set on not pushing Russia away, on not alienating Russia or provoking more backlash at home. Congress remains a major obstacle here, and both Trump and Erdogan are fully aware of it. Reports indicate that Israel and Greece are both pressuring lawmakers to reject Erdogan's ambitions to obtain F-35s, and any real progress from F-35s to Russian energy to Syria requires more than just one visit, of course. Whether this meeting leads to a stronger U.S. Turkey alliance or just another round of diplomatic meetings, that remains to be seen. I think given the extent of the discussions and given the role of Turkey in the Middle East, Trump is very much ready to continue engaging Turkey and do so more aggressively in order to pursue his own interests in the region. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that this quick update was interesting. Make sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, ring the bell to enable notifications, and make sure that you follow me on Substack and Patreon, support my work. I would appreciate that a lot. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you back here soon. Take care.